So today is all about getting the results you want from habits. So obviously, as I said before, creating habits that stick is super important. So to begin with, what exactly is a habit? Um, I like to talk about habits as repeated behaviors, and the thing about creating a new habit is essentially it's pretty much the easiest thing to do in the world. The challenge is you need to repeat the same action at the same time each day for days on end, and preferably with as little thought as possible. So it sounds easy, but to be fair, every habit is a result of many small decisions over time. So the old habits you're wanting to ditch were created in this way. So it makes sense that you'll need to use the same approach to develop new habits, right? Just going to have a look at everybody here. I can see you. So when we talk about the old habits that we have, sometimes they were accidental. I know for me, I can resonate with this idea of accidental habits. You just do something mindlessly and you go, oh, wow, that's actually something that's a habit. So, new habits, the challenge is that they need to be deliberate. So, we've all heard of success stories when it comes to losing weight. Oh, Jenny, she loses 50 kilos, and, Margaret's diabetes medication is no longer needed, or, Sally, she lost her depression along with losing weight. But the trouble is, these dramatic transformations are what we want to hear about, but what we don't hear about is the hard work the person puts into achieving their success. Uh, Hello. So transformations are great, but that's the thing. There's a lot of small, intricate things that happen in order for the long-term transformation to take place. So if you guys have pen and paper, it's at this point that I'm going to invite you to find some pen and paper stuff, or some sort of writing implement, or maybe a keyboard if you want to type out. At the end of this, I will drop in a link to our handout. So the handout is a summary of what we're going to talk about. There will be an activity as well in your handout. So I'm not going to let you just hang there and just listen to me crap on. So this is all about taking action, and really anything we do is about taking action, and taking action as soon as we can in a way that's effective. So the thing about not understanding what people go through to achieve success is that we're kind of left with this idea that the goal is possible, but then we don't know how to make it happen for ourselves. And a lot of people I know can definitely resonate with this. We're like, I know what the goal is. I'm on it. I've got it. We're big. Let's make this happen. Let's do it. And then you're like, I don't really know. I really know what to do. Can somebody please help me? So we always get inspired and motivated to get stuff done, but we haven't really spent the time needed to develop the new habits that are actually going to get us there. And motivation only really gets us so far. So I'm going to go to the next slide now. So it's all about the goal not being the focus. So becoming the person you want to become is about the daily processes you follow. You're hearing me out? And it's not the ultimate weight, the fitness, or the health that you actually want. So your current weight, think about this, your current weight, your fitness and health is actually the result of your habits to date. So it makes sense that if you want to create a different weight and state of health, you need to create a different stack of habits. Yeah? Yeah. I see some nodding. So in creating a new healthy habit, it takes focus and it takes planning to initiate the new behaviors. And then you have to repeat it often enough that you no longer actually need to think about it. Is this making sense? So despite motivation, desire, and solid goals, sometimes it's actually hard to stick to the new habit. Habits are like the make or break, guys. This is how we get stuff done. So this is actually a habit cycle. So it might surprise you to know that there is actually a simple 3-step pattern that every single habit follows. So it looks like number 1, as you can see, the cue. And so that's the trigger that initiates the behavior. And then we've got number 2, which is routine. And this is the behavior itself or the action that you take. Number 3 is the reward, and this is the benefit you gain from doing the behavior or the payoff. And as you can see, it feeds into itself. So this on the screen that you can see is talking about going for a morning exercise routine, right? So the cue that you might set, for example, would put your sneakers at the end of the bed, okay? Number 2 is that you go for a walk around the block before breakfast. And number 3 is that you reward yourself with your morning exercise, because early morning exercise is a reward, not a punishment, guys. And then you're set up for a great day. So we could also apply this to something else, like taking your lunch, like preparing lunch and taking it out on your day or to work or whatever. So if we look at the steps in developing a habit, we would go, okay, well, step number 1, which is the cue, you might want to write a little post-it note that says prepare lunch, and you might want to stick it to your fridge. That's sort of a cue. Step number 2 would be going to the fridge to prepare dinner, but then also getting the food out for tomorrow's lunch. Because what this is going to do is prompt you to grab a lunch box and then cut up your salad and then maybe grab a can of salmon. I mean, that's what I did today. So that's your routine. So step number 3, in the morning, you go back to the fridge for something for breakfast. And let's say you get bacon and mushrooms and spinach for the fry pan, but then you're going to see the note again, and then you're going to take your lunch out of the fridge. And then you're going to leave it with your bag and take it to work, ready to enjoy at lunchtime. So that's your reward, because you get a nice, fresh, healthy lunch, to eat. So the result, obviously, of this habit cycle is that your body feels great after eating a good lunch. Your brain feels great because you did something positive, and then you followed through with your good intentions, and therefore your weight heads in the direction you want. So you can see how the pattern just sort of perpetuates. So the positive reward forms a positive feedback loop that reinforces the repetition of the new habit. Are you hearing? You getting it? Yeah. So if you follow this 3-step cycle often enough, you'll actually stop thinking about it, and that's when it's actually a habit. So, motivation. Oh. So it's easy to do something when you're motivated. But that's what happens when most people start a weight loss program, right? We get motivated, and the problem is that motivation is variable, because sometimes it's high and then other times it is not high. So if motivation is all that's helping you create a habit, so a habit, let's label that a consistent behavior, then it's logical that when motivation is low, so for example, you're tired, you're angry, you're frustrated, you're stressed, you're busy, because we're so busy being busy, you'll actually forget about the new habit you're trying to create. So my tip is don't use something variable to create something consistent. I think that's a pretty good tip. So you want to link the cue, oops, just going to turn my phone on silent, to something you already do. So the example earlier linked preparing lunch with making dinner. So you see how that kind of works. So it might be that you already drive past the gym on your way home from work, for example. So keeping your exercise gear in the car will link the current habit to the new cue. Does that make sense? Yes. So whatever you decide, you just need to make the cue so easy that you can't actually say no. So that's the big clencher. Another tip, starting small. I like to call it the 2mm rule. I stole that from Tony Robbins. But remember that lasting change is the result of daily habits and not magical transformation. So we talked about that a little earlier. So always start small, because the result is less important than becoming the sort of person who sticks to your new behaviors. Once these new behaviors are actually habits, then you can set about improving your performance and becoming better at what you're doing. So start small. Perhaps this might be as small as packing some snacks to take to work. I know for a lot of people, snack time is like the ultimate time where they're like, oh boy, I really fell over today. So it might be as small as putting like runners on and walking around the lounge room. So I want you guys to think about, like, today, what could you actually do today to start a new habit? And I want you to write it down. So I'm going to give you a moment to think about, like, what's a habit that you'd like to change? Maybe you set yourself a New Year's resolution a little bit earlier and you're like, oh, what happened? I don't really know. But maybe write something down and then think about what could you actually do today. So celebrate. This is super important, guys. There's no point in leaving your celebration or rewards until you've achieved your absolute goal. It's really, really important to congratulate yourself for the small things with positive self-talk. So if this is a foreign concept for you, research has shown that the reward is an important part of creating a habit. Catch yourself doing things right and tell yourself, yes, like give yourself a little power jam, man. Be like, yes, I got it. Well done. Congratulate yourself or whatever is meaningful for you. As long as it's positive, you need to just reinforce these little tiny milestones that you create. It's super important, guys. Like I know so many people that are so focused on the big goal, and really at the end of the day, the journey of 1,000 miles, sorry for the cliche, but the journey of 1,000 miles starts with a single step. You need to celebrate each step. Okay, so I got a little exercise for you. Cool. So you can see on the slide, this is about identity-based habits. So what I want you to do is complete this sentence. So in your own time, in your own words, I'm the sort of person who. And whatever you say to complete this sentence is something you believe of yourself, and this is going to form part of who you are, i.e. your identity. So I'm going to give you a moment. So hopefully that's enough time for you and you've got something meaningful. So the thing is, in order to believe a new identity, you need to prove it to yourself. So I want you now to think about the identity of somebody who has the weight and health that you would like to achieve. So who are they? What do they do? What exercise do they do? How do they eat? So think about all those things. And then there's another sentence that I'd like you to write. So just below that, if you've got a pen and paper, you're typing it. A person who has glowing health and weighs X kilos, whatever that is for you, does this. And think about what they do. So an example would be a slim, fit person might be known to their friends as the type of person who eats well and exercises regularly. Another example, a professional athlete may be known as someone who is focused and never misses a workout, or even a woman who is well presented is known as someone who takes pride in her appearance. So you can see the little theme here. So, how can you describe this identity that you'd like to become? So I'm going to give you a moment. And maybe hold on to this piece of paper, guys, because this is how we start to set goals. All right, so this is a part where I want you to think about making the change. So compare your current identity with that of the person you'd like to become. And then I want you to think about the small steps you can start taking right now, as in like today, like this evening, that you can do to make this change. Just even if it's small, guys, okay? Even if it's one little step, okay? So for example, it might be that you want to be the sort of person who exercises regularly, right? So a little thing that you could do is either use an app or a pedometer maybe, and start with only 500 steps per day. That means you could still do some steps tonight. Even if you only did like 200 steps, you could go for a walk. You want to record the number of steps that you take each day, making sure you take at least maybe 10 steps a day more than the previous day. Remember, 2 millimeters, guys. So it's just incremental improvement. That's the focus of creating good habits. So your new habits need to be a series of actions that build on each other. That is the clencher. The first step is to develop a very small habit that becomes so ingrained that you don't even need to think about it. That is how habits, that's how we actually do the habit thing. So an example might be to keep a filled water bottle with you to avoid dehydration. Okay, that's another example. So the trick is to dream big, but start small. That's what I like to say. So if you focus on the big picture, you can become so obsessed with the goal rather than the habit and lifestyle that makes a goal a reality, you actually never get there. And then it's just a dream or a fantasy. So losing 20 kilos might be the goal, but making sure you've got some protein in each meal might be a new lifestyle. Your past approaches to losing weight might have been to dive in at the deep end and to try and create massive changes all at once. But then the new approach might be to paddle in the shallows and then gently wade into the deeper parts until you can swim without really noticing. And all of this can actually happen whether you're motivated or not. So actually removing the motivation factor, because motivation is definitely not sustainable. So once again, daily habits are the tiny routines that are repeated day in and day out, and they are what make the big dreams a reality, because dreams start small. That is so essential to wrap your head around, guys. Okay. So keystone habits. So keystone habits are the routines that naturally pull the rest of our life into line. Okay. So these are the keystone parts of our daily living. So an example might be your morning routine. For example, I may or may not be quoting my previous part of my life. You hit the snooze button and then you wake again in a panic. And then you fly out of bed and go in the shower, and then you run out the door, you go to Macca's for a bloody thick shake and a coffee and a muffin. Okay. And it doesn't sound like a good start to a positive day. You see what I'm saying? So instead, think about what you can change so that your day starts on a more positive, maybe less frantic note. So things you could do: go to bed earlier at night. Keystone habit. Because this might lead you to be able to have a morning walk because you're getting up a bit earlier. You might even be able to fit in a meditation, and you probably be able to eat a healthy breakfast mindfully. So changing this one thing, so just going to bed a little bit earlier, then signals the rest to fall into place. Can you see what I'm saying? It's not relying on motivation. That's the big thing, because this keystone habit is absolutely not negotiable as long as it's in accordance with the long-term habits you want to create. So this is the thing about keystone habits. They have to be completely non-negotiable. So if it seems impossible to complete your activity for that day, find a way to make it happen, because remember, it's not negotiable. So let's use walking in the morning as an example. It's raining. Uh-oh, I better not go for a walk. No. How about you put on a jacket, carry an umbrella? Oh, there's lightning. Oh dear, no, can't do it. So maybe walk laps of your house, or go to a gym and go on a treadmill or something. You could go up and down stairs. You could do sit-ups. You could do squats instead. I mean, you could still do something that aims towards the greater goal. Oh, it's cold. Oh my God, it's too cold. I have to stay in bed. So wear a hat, wear gloves with a jacket, and then walk faster. So you can see there's ways to get around it. This is the one thing that I hear all the time though. I don't have time. But I don't have time. Guys, I don't have time really means I haven't got this high on my priority list. That's really what that means. So structure your time and choices so you can get what you want done. Is watching a particular TV program more important than exercising? If it is, could you record the show and watch it later so you could fit in lunch preparation for the next day maybe? What if you run out of time? Well, stick to the schedule, but reduce the scope. So for example, you accidentally slept in. You know what? That happens. Okay. And you couldn't get your normal 30-minute walk. So maybe instead do 20 push-ups, because you know what? You don't even have to get out of your pajamas to do that. Okay. And it could take less than a minute. Okay. Obviously it's not ideal, but it's certainly better than doing nothing. So remember, keystone habits, means no excuses, non-negotiables, absolutely no negotiables. So this is a really good way to start recording your keystone habits each day. So set a small goal that is the same every day and just do it. As I said, no excuses, no argument, no matter what. Don't focus on the result, but do focus on not breaking the cycle. That is the key. So get yourself a calendar, like a big calendar that you've got big squares on if you can, or if you're using a planner, even just writing it at the top, that's a bit more labor intensive, but hey, whatever works for you guys. You want to record the completion of that activity every day, however you need to on the calendar, and like cross it out so that over time it's really clear that you've actually been successful, because nothing is more satisfying than seeing a big cross through something or a tick or something. Make it really visual, because visual cues help us. And when we're trying to create habits, we need all the help we can get. We need to recruit all of the processes that we can to make ourselves successful at changing our habits. So this is the thing, conditions are never going to be perfect. So don't wait until they are perfect, because they're never going to be perfect, guys. This is the truth. Obviously, change can be really, really hard. And sometimes you'll take 2 steps forward and then you'll take 1 step back. This is normal, but anticipate that it might happen and develop a plan for getting back on track quickly. 2 steps forward and 1 step back, you know what? It's still 1 step forward, right? Still 1 step forward. So don't beat yourself up if you fall off the wagon, guys. I know so many people, like I have a lot of clients, and it's quite cute because I used to be this client. And I used to be my worst client, and I would do something and then I would completely mess it up. Like I would be on like this challenge where I wouldn't eat something and then I'd go eat it. And they'd be like, oh man, I stuffed it. The whole day is going to become a binge day. And then that would turn into a whole weekend that would become a binge weekend. And then that would turn into a whole week. I'd be like, I stuffed it. I'm just, nah. Okay. So don't beat yourself up, but you got to think to yourself, well, you know what? It happened. And now I'm back on track, because I'm the sort of person who eats and exercises well. So now I'm going to go prove it. Maybe that's another way to reframe that, guys. It's not failure, okay? There's no such thing as failure. You just learn how not to do things. So this is the last slide, guys. You've been fantastic. It's not a long webinar because I don't want to be boring the crap out of you. This is actionable stuff. So this week, I want you to think about, what are you going to do? So the first thing is to decide on a keystone habit that works for you. So think of something simple that you can do with very little thought, but which triggers the response you're after. So this might be as simple as having the cue of sticking that note on the fridge to remind you to drink water. The routine would then be to fill your water bottle and carry it with you everywhere you go. And then the reward is that you will have increase your water take over the course of the day, therefore improving your overall health and body functioning, which makes weight loss easier. So some suggestions for challenges this week. So this is totally up to you to set yourself your own challenge this week, guys. Maybe you could replace soft drinks or juice with water. Maybe you could reduce coffee to 2 per day, or maybe you could have an alcohol-free week. So there's just some suggestions, but feel free to think about what is the thing that you can think of that works for you that can become a keystone habit. So yes, you can give yourself a material reward if you like, as long as it's not food. So, if you're like, when I do this thing and I achieve this keystone habit and I've crossed it off my calendar every day this week, I'm going to go buy myself a pair of shoes, a pair of sneakers, or a pedometer, or I'm going to treat myself to a massage, or I'm going to give myself some self-care and have some time to myself, or I'm going to give myself a meditation. Whatever it is, guys, as long as it's not food, you need to reward yourself. Remember, rewards are key. So I like to hear about your progress. So this time next week, when you join me for the next webinar, which is going to be about nutrition, I want you to brag about it in the chat, okay? I want you to brag about it in the chat. So We've come to the end of the webinar. I want to thank you for joining me. If you would like to unmute your microphone, you totally can go ahead and do that. If you have any questions you'd like to ask me, I'm here. If you're like, I'd rather be slightly anonymous and type it out, feel free to do that. Has anybody got any questions? I see finger near a screen. I see Deli's finger near a screen. So if you don't have any questions, guys, if you do come up with any questions, feel free to DM me or add a comment. So this will be reposted, so you can add a comment in there. If you want to DM me and you're not following me, it's Loz Antonenko. That's LOZANTONENKO. I will pop a link. So on my Facebook group page and a couple of my other pages, I'll pop the link to the handout that goes with this so that you've got some reference, because obviously there was quite a bit that we covered. It'll give you a step-by-step reference as to everything we talked about, and it will remind you of your challenge for next week. So guys, I want to thank you so much for joining me, and I love hanging out with you. Have a wonderful rest of the evening, and ciao for now. Bye.